So this is going to be the tough one, guys. So how how did you handle your grief? For Malik and Miguel, it's handling the grief of your loss. And I look at mom as not being lost because we know where she is. She's resting comfortably in our Father's arms. And when I say Father, I'm talking about our Father in heaven. So she's resting until he called her. He wake her up and call her on to heaven. She's resting. So, and for you, Z, it is, how did you handle the grief of seeing your mother transform into a new person? Because she went in one way, and when I say went in, she became ill and fighting cancer, and the woman that you were accustomed to seeing, loving, knowing, dealing with, when cancer was done and it had run its course and she was healed and it was in remission, now you're dealing with a different person because it changed who she was. So, guys, tell me about how you've dealt with the grief side of, mom transitioning on to heaven. And then Z, talk about your transition of your mom shifting to another person. Okay, Miguel?
Um, you know, it as soon as it happened, the one thing that I could think about was, this is just a joke. She's gonna come back. This a joke. Like there's she's not gonna like. And then I walk into that hospital and I see grandma and she's smiling, her eyes closed, and it's like, oh, okay. This there's like she's not like she's not here, and like the one thing that it pops up to my mind in my mind like almost every single day is the fact that grandma, before she left, it was like the last moment I seen her, she was saying, I'm gonna be all right, Miguel, I'm gonna be all right, don't be sad, I'm gonna be all right. And the one thing I always think about is the fact that I was too scared to say anything before she even left to the hospital, and before things got way worse. I was too scared to say anything back. I love you, grandma. I never got a chance to say it. And it makes you also think about all the times you could have spent with grandma, and all the time like I could have spent with her. You'd be in the same house with somebody and you just don't spend any time with them, and then an event happens and it wakes you up, and it's like, but now in this case it was too late. So every moment where I went upstairs, decided to play RPG Maker and V, instead of sitting down there with grandma, instead of watching TV, even if it was a show I didn't care about or didn't like, it makes you think about that. And it's like this sense of like that's the one thing that came to mind was, I don't get the right to cry because I didn't even treat grandma right, or I feel like I didn't spend enough time with her. I didn't do all I could have while she was here. So what right does that give me? And it's like, as well, seeing y'all going through what y'all were going through, I didn't want to cry, so I just did my best to like, and I still try to do my best to just suppress it and not think about it. But every day it's like that memory just pops up in my head. So and truth be told, I don't think I have gotten over it. I don't think I ever will. But it's like trying to learn to live with it. So.
Okay.
Ooh, Lord, man. Well, I'm not even gonna sugarcoat anything. Like I'm definitely not gonna lie, sit here and say I've gotten over it. I'm not gonna lie and say I've dealt with it. I've attempted to. It's been years now, and still, I'ma catch myself just in the car alone, and then I hear a song that grandma used to listen to, instant tears. So I it just takes me back to the day y'all called, man. Like when Daddy called, and he was like, "Hey, your grandma, she's unresponsive. So go ahead and get out your last words to her." And when he said that, I'm like, nah, I'm right there with Miguel, man. Like you, I'm like, you joking, man. You not, what you mean, get out my last words, bro. And it's when I called you, and you FaceTime me, and just looking at grandma, that image is burned in my head. Cause that's the last way I seen her, and I still look at other pictures to see her in a better light. But I remember saying, "Grandma, like I love you, and I thank you for everything you done did for us, man. Like I appreciate that." And I wanted her to say I love you back, and she couldn't talk. And I know you told me like, Malik, you know, she trying to say I love you back, but she can't. And I know that sit with me. That sits with me to this day. But I know she loved me, and I know after I got out that call, man, I just wanted to do everything to get home. I'm like, who I got to talk to hop on the flight. But then that realization that, Malik, you 14 hours away, bro. Even if I could have got a flight that instant, I wouldn't have made it in time. I just would have been coming to see grandma laying on that bed. Man, I ain't never really recovered from that. But I will say, every day going through that, it has motivated me to just unseen heights on determination, because everything I do, I dedicate to grandma. I'ma do everything I can to give this family a better life, and I'ma do everything I can to make her proud, because the angel she gave me the last time I seen her, and I recorded a video that I'm gonna add to this. She said, "Malik, keep this angel with you, and wherever it go, I'ma be with you. And there ain't nothing that I do on this earth that ain't for my grandma. Because I want her to be looking up in heaven and be like, hey, man, I didn't even know you could reach that height." Like, she always told me that I was going to be great. She always told me that. But I want to surpass her expectations. So when I get to heaven, I can look at it and say, "Grandma, I did it. I made it. I helped our family." And that's my motivation. That's how I cope with the love I have for grandma. Because everything I do, I dedicate to her. And I want her to see that, grandma, you left a great legacy here on this earth, and we gonna make you proud.
Anything ever happens to me, you know I'll always be with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you don't need this to know that,
Yeah.
but this will be a reminder.
Yeah.
You see you,
Yeah.
and you just find a special place on you to put it,
I will.
because it's precious.
Well, after my mom finished with everything, with all of her treatments, and they told her that she was done, that she just had to go in for her yearly MRIs, mammograms, my mom was a different person. Still very happy, still laughing all the time, but you could tell that there was a part of her missing. Till this day, we're still trying to figure out what that part of it is. But she was always tired. She never really wanted to do a lot of things. She'd go to work and she'd come home after work and she'd just be tired. Years later, I found out that cancer affected her mentally, because she no longer had a breast. She had to go through reconstruction, so she no longer had a breast. And as a woman, our breasts make us feel a certain type of way. And her not having her breast and, having the scar right there made her feel like she was unworthy of love, made her feel like she was unworthy of a lot of things. And I remember she just seemed angry. And again, it's hard to talk about it because I tried to block out all of those memories, just because it's hard. But I just remember she was angry. She may not have known that she was angry, but she definitely wasn't the happy person she usually was. But it was just hard. It was just hard. I don't know how else to explain it. She was different. No energy. I feel like her energy slowly started coming back years later. But there was also so much other stuff that was going on after she got done with cancer that it was just one thing after the other. And I feel like she was never able to actually heal from her having cancer. I feel like she's finally doing that now, finding that peace and comfort within her. But yeah, it was rough.
Okay. I know for me, so that was probably, I would say, definitely one of the hardest moments I've ever had to experience. I still remember headed to work and getting the call from the doctor saying that I needed to get to the hospital, because my mom's cancer had spread. This was the first time that I had heard anything about her cancer spreading. I knew that she wasn't doing well because we had just rushed her back to the hospital. But this was my first time hearing the doctor say it spread to her other organs. They had never once said that it was spreading. So I received the call from the doctor that morning, and I remember it like it was yesterday. So I'm at work. I had just pulled into our parking deck, and when I pulled into the parking deck, the doctor called. So I'm sitting in the deck, and he's telling me I need to get to the hospital, because my mother may not make it throughout the day. So I remember leaving the parking deck, and I get to the hospital, and the funny thing is when I walked in the room with mom, she's talking, she's smiling at me. I remember it like it was yesterday, seeing her, and I'm like, the doctor is saying one thing over the phone, but when I get here and I'm looking at her, her eyes are open, she's talking to me, and she's, "Hey Pam, what you doing here?" And she's talking to me just like any other normal day. And the doctor pulled me out, and they tell me that they can't dialyze her, so they can't draw fluid from her. So they can't do dialysis on her because every time they try to do dialysis on her, her blood pressure would drop. So the cancer is spread. They can't do dialysis, and they're telling me that I have to make a choice. So I have to make this choice on whether to allow her to pass, allow the fluid to build up so basically she drowns in her own fluid, or make a choice to where I tell them to do everything that they can to save her, but that may cause her more pain. So I remember telling the doctor, do everything you can for my mom. And I remember having this conversation with Chris and Tim and letting them know what the doctors were saying. And of course, we all were on one accord. You do everything you got to do to save our mom. And I sat with her after I talked to the doctor, and then they called the chaplain in to talk to me. And I walked back in in the room with Mom, in the hospital room. And she looked at me and she said, "It ain't good news, is it?" And I said, "Mom, we not going to focus on that." So I said, "You know what, Mama?" I said, "Get your rest." I said, "I love you. And do you want me to pray for you?" And we prayed together. And after we prayed, I asked for her forgiveness for everything that I had done to her, for every time that I had hurt her, for every time that I had not understood what she was dealing with or what she was going through. I apologized for all of the things I did wrong to her and told her that I loved her and told her it was time for her to get her rest and for her not to be concerned with us, but it was time for her to just rest. No more hurting, no more pain. And she said, "I love you too." And okay, baby. And then she just went to sleep. And it was like in that moment, she was just at peace. That's when she went to sleep, but she wasn't gone. It's like all of a sudden there was this calmness that came over her, and she just laid there and was just resting. She was just sleeping. And I just sat in the room with her. My mom didn't respond to me anymore that day. And I stayed in the hospital room with her the rest of the day. I remember my husband came out to sit with me. My brothers were trying to get a flight here. And I sit in the lobby because they put her in ICU because she went down. It's like the moment we prayed, she instantly went down. It was like I had never seen anything like it before in my life. But part of the prayer was, "God, don't let her suffer. God, if it's your will for her to go, take her quickly. Don't let her suffer." And they instantly moved her to ICU. And from there, I would just be out in the lobby. My mother and father-in-law came to sit with me. My husband was there. You got family in and out on my husband's side because I didn't have any family here other than my husband's family. So that's my family. So they're in and out to check on me or whatever. And I remember us leaving that night because she's in ICU. So we left that night, and the next day, that next morning, all through the night, I'm calling, and they're like, we can't do dialysis on her. Every time we try, and they're telling us, they're trying, but they just can't. So I remember them calling me the next morning because we were going through so much. We were dealing with children. We had just went through a foster care training. So we had our goddaughter, and our goddaughter we had to go do CPR class. So me and my husband are sitting in CPR class, and I get the phone call, and the doctor is telling me, "You need to get here now because your mom may not make it until noon." So left Friday night, Saturday morning, I get the call, get to the hospital. We get to the hospital, and I remember it like yesterday. I'm sitting in that room holding her hand. And as I'm holding her hand, she left this earth at 5 o'clock on the dot. As she was transitioning to glory, my brother's flight was landing. So at the same time she's transitioning, my brothers are landing in Arkansas. So it was as if And I just say this for me, it was as if she was at peace transitioning because now her kids are back together here. And I remember her squeezing my hand, and she sits straight up in the bed, and she is looking. Her eyes were no longer hazy. They were so beautiful. Her skin was so beautiful. It was as if nothing was wrong with her in that moment when she squeezed my hand. It's like whatever she was looking at that was at the bottom of that bed, she wanted to go with it, because one hand is squeezing mine and the other hand is reaching for whatever she is seeing at the end of the bed. And as she's she's reaching for it, and when she finally reached for it, and it's like all of a sudden, she gasped for air, and she fell back on the bed, and she took her last breath. And the doctors couldn't do anything. They rushed in the room, and I'm screaming now because I'm like, Mama. And I remember screaming, but they couldn't do anything because she had already told them, if I go, don't resuscitate me. She wanted to go. She did not want to be a vegetable. She didn't want to be on life support. She said, when it's my time, let me go. So she took her last breath, laid back on the bed, and my mom was gone. And I remember I cried for a moment, and I had some church members in there at that time, and they were like, Pam, she's gone. You got to let her go. She's gone. And it's like, I cried for a second, and then it's like all of a sudden, I'm good. I mean, it's like I'm good. My brothers walked in the room, and I went into my mode of, I gotta be strong for them. I gotta be here for them. I need to be strong for them because this is their first time seeing her. They're walking into a room and their mom is already gone. I gotta be strong for them. So I just went into that mode of, I just need to be here for my brothers in this moment. So I stood up and I was like, all right. So I comforted them. My brothers had their moment with her and her body, and then we prayed together. And that was that. For me, the grief side of it, I'm going to be honest. I don't think I've dealt with grief. I don't believe I've dealt with the grief side of it, because I've always felt like I just had to be strong for everybody else. I felt like, okay, my brothers are here. I need to be strong for them. Okay, now I got to be strong for my kids, because my kids, if I cry, they're going to cry. So I got to be strong for them. And then when I was away from everybody and I was having my moments of grief and I was crying and I would be in this place, now my husband, he don't want me crying. So he's trying to pull me out of that moment of grief because he doesn't like to see me cry. So I'm dealing with, it's like everywhere I turn, I never had a moment to just process it. So I'm always putting on this strong face as if nothing bothers me, when inside I'm like, I just lost my mama. I just lost my mom. And no little girl wants to lose their mom. I don't care how old you get. No son, no daughter, no, you don't want to lose your parent. That's always been there. You just don't. So for me, I have not dealt with grief. I have not allowed myself to grieve. I have not allowed myself to process it. I still see the image of her in my head as if it was yesterday. I still see her in my head taking her last breath. I have not dealt with grief. I have not allowed myself, or maybe I should change that. Maybe I'm still grieving. Maybe that's it. I'm still grieving. Because I still miss her. I still miss her. I miss her voice. I miss her laughter. I just miss her. I miss being able to call and be like, what you doing? Or just checking on her, or her calling me. I just miss her. And that doesn't go away. It don't go away. It just doesn't go away. And for you guys, I know it doesn't go away. That grief, it doesn't go away, but I would encourage you to allow yourself the opportunity to grieve. Allow yourself the opportunity to release those emotions and to let it go, to release the tears, whatever you have to do to process and get that out, whether it be counseling or talking to someone, whether it be sharing with each other and allowing yourself to have those moments where, yes, you may cry, yes, you may scream, yes, you may have those moments where you just need to let it all out. I encourage you to allow yourself to do that. Miguel, you said something that kind of stuck with me when you said you felt like you felt like you never got a chance to you didn't deserve to grieve because you didn't tell her you love her. You didn't say those final words to her. Son, mom knew you loved her. Mom always knew you loved her. Just because you didn't say it in that one moment, she knew we loved her. She knew that she was our world. She knew. So, son, give yourself permission to let it go, to release those emotions. Give yourself permission to cry. Give yourself permission to release all of that you've been holding in. Because she knew. Mom loved y'all like nobody's business. Mama loved her grandkids. Oh my God, did she love her grandkids? Man, she allowed Malik to tear up every freaking thing I had in the house. And then, Miguel, she allowed you both to get away with everything. Everything. She loved her children. And you both know she enjoyed spending time with you. She loved it. Every moment she could get, she wanted to spend time with y'all. Son, just because you didn't tell her that you loved her when she was on her dying bed, doesn't mean she didn't hear you all the other times you said, I love you. She heard you every time you would go into that room and she said, I love you, Miguel, good night. And you said, I love you too. She heard you. Or when you talked to her on the phone, she heard you. And she knew it. So, son, I don't want you carrying that. Allow yourself the opportunity to grieve and to pour out your emotions, because you loved your grandma and she loved you and she knew it. Y'all were her world. And you both know, that she loved her chillins.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of I Have a Testimony. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Catch us next week as we continue to dive into I Have a Testimony. See you soon. Bye.